Clients always ask me, how do you kick off an Agile project? And the way I do it is, let's get the team together. The best thing that you can do is get the right people, or all the people that's required, into a room. And then start off with one of the basic principles of Agile, which is create your social contract. Don't start talking about the goals, don't start talking about the delivery. The social contract is really the core of expressing the understanding of how a team wants to operate. For example, a social contract, you start talking about when we have meetings, we all want to turn up on time. An organisation will have its values. It will have the basic principles of how you want to operate within an organisation. But what the social contract does, it actually brings in the element of how the program or the team wants to operate. It's down in the lower level. It's understanding what are the things that bug a team or bug individuals. You know, think of the times that you've been on a program or a project and you say, I wish we had this, or I wish we had that. The social contract's about binding that together and building it collectively. So that would be my first part of getting the team to understand how they want to operate. Once you've got that out of the way, then you start moving into, okay, why are we here? What's the program? Let's start talking about a goal or the goals. Then we look at, well, who's setting the goals? So it's looking at the backlogs. Do we have a backlog? And then if we don't have that, then okay, well, how do you create a backlog? So then you start thinking about roadmaps and the strategy. So by bringing all that in, it starts to form the big puzzle, as I call it. So you've got the jigsaw puzzle and you're starting to put the pieces on the board. And to start that, you will look at the strategy, you will look at the roadmap. And as you dive further into that, you start to create your products or the backlogs of those products. If you have that, then great, then you look at the roles. Then you start moving into the roles and responsibilities. So who's going to own the backlog? And you might hear terms like the product owner, or the business owner, or the product manager, depending on the organisation. That starts to formulate, okay, now we know who owns the goal, that why we're here. So you can have the conversation with those individuals. From then we move into, well, who's going to coordinate? Who's the conductor? Who's actually constructing this project team? And that's the Scrum Master. The Scrum Master, and hence the word master, he's sort of looking at how am I going to orchestrate this program. Once we have the Scrum Master defined, then we look at the team. And we call it team for a reason. It's not that we want to disassociate the roles. It's not about reducing the developer or the tester or the BA or the solution architect and so forth. It's about saying you're all a team member. You all have an equal voice. And that's why I like to use the word team. You're a team member. You can be a BA, but you might also be a tester. You could even be a developer if you choose to be. But it's about being one team. So once you have the team, you've already done your social contract, so you've figured out the ways of working and the things that you want to overcome within that working way. And you've defined your goals. So you have defined your goals through your backlog or through your strategy or through your roadmap. Then it's about moving into the next phases. So the next phase would be, hey, we need to elaborate. We need to understand how we're going to build this goal. So you use mechanisms like stories and features and epics, which are all the levels within Agile. And if I straight away jump into a story, well, that's defining the value or the user value that you're trying to bring out. So you articulate it in a story format, which could be, I would like to build something because this is the value that I wish to see. By clarifying that, and in the elaboration session, you've got the whole team communicating, collaborating, conversing. I like debates. I like the team to debate what they're actually trying to build, because that really tells me or shows me that the team is actually involved in the product that they're building. They're actually questioning. They're not just following a script. They're actually working together to build something that's going to be beneficial and it has value. And that's the team value. We then move into the estimation, because like any program or any project, you want to know how much it's going to cost. Estimation, which is one of the principles of Agile, it's very hard to explain to an organisation how to do estimation correctly or do it right. I have 3 simple keys for estimation. It's the complexity of something. So how complex is it to do? The other question I ask the team is the effort. Does anyone know what the effort it's going to take to build that product? And the third one, which a lot of organisations tend to miss, it's the unknown, because people say, I don't know how to do unknown. You've got to put it on a scale. Is it something that you've never done before? Is it something that you have done before but you're not quite sure? It's trying to articulate where on the scale that unknown is. If you combine those three factors, unknown, complexity, and effort, that will give you the value of estimation. And we tend to say it in story points if we're following the Agile principles. By accumulating all those three things, so we've talked about the social contract, we've talked about the roles and responsibilities, we've gone into the goals and the strategy and the roadmap, and then we've gone into elaboration where we're defining what we're actually building, and then we've applied the estimation process. You're starting to build the framework now. You're starting to get into that build. You know, you're ready for the team, but you need to do a bit of planning. So planning comes with who's available, have we got everyone in the room, is everyone ready to be able to start building? So you apply the Agile principle of planning, and that may be mapping out who's available, when are they available, to start building the capacity. And this is where your capacity and resource modeling comes into it. So you can see that we've defined now what we're wanting to build, but have we got everyone available to build that? So once we've gone through that planning phase, and there are techniques that you will use to try and get the accuracy correct, you plan, and then you've planned your sprints. So now you're ready to kick off your program. You're ready to go into build and test. And you set a time frame, and that could be the iterations or the sprints that people talk about, and they could be time frames. It could be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. You don't know. That's why you have to try. And you'll lead into that probably for the first 3 sprints to try and engage and understand the team, how it's going to operate. And you apply all the principles that we spoke about within those sprints. And how you actually see if they're working, you actually reflect or use a retrospective. So at the end of that cycle, you will reflect back and say, hey, have we elaborated correctly? Have we got our social contract in place? Did it work? Did we follow the principles that everyone spoke about? Did we estimate correctly? So did we look at that complexity, unknown, and effort? And whilst you're reflecting all that, you're actually improving for the next sprint, for the next cycle. So for me, you'll always win. There is no failure because you're improving, but you have to follow those values. If you don't, you won't succeed.